bad faith. More the issue is not to say if there's bad faith or not, but more to determine the nature of this bad faith. So that's the first idea I want to propose to you. The second thing, it's about authenticity of the philosophical practice. Well, it's an interesting question to say, is when Socrates is ironical, is he authentic? You know, so when you speak not from the standpoint of something where you actually describe your thoughts, but from a performative standpoint, there's a certain form of duplicity. Yeah. So the question of authenticity here is a bit problematic. You know, you can claim on one side that he's authentic when he's ironical. On the other side, you can say he's not authentic. I imagine you see why, Alex, right? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So now that we clarify these 2 points, can you say, I don't know if it deals with your question or what is the nature of the problem you're trying to raise?
The problem is believing that I can use some technique without understanding it first. And also,
okay, well, there again, do you drive a car?
no.
No, okay, well, let's say, you know, some people drive cars, yes, you know?
Yeah.
But do you think they understand the mechanics? Because of this, they understand the mechanics, the way a car functions, the engine and everything else. Do you think they understand?
No, they don't.
They don't, but they can still use the car. Yeah. See, when people say understand, I always worry because behind this idea of understanding, there is a sort of a ghost of a full mastery, of a full understanding or a complete understanding, total understanding. Yeah. You see? And I think that does not exist. Yeah. I know myself, sometimes I do this. I do something in a consultation and okay, relatively intuitively. And after that, people make comments and I say, oh yeah, right. You know, I had not understood I was doing that. And I understand it because somebody makes a comment about it. Yeah. So did I understand what I was doing or not? Well, again, you can say yes, you can say no. Yeah. You understand the idea?
Yeah.
So that's what when I ask people, do you understand? They say, not totally. Well, of course, not totally. Nobody understands totally. The idea of understanding totally is meaningless. Yeah. Huh? So then what is the problem?
The problem is, I noticed that in counseling, sometimes success comes from this spontaneity of the practitioner, where he uses something personal, part of his personality, like his authenticity, to make it in a little different than all the other way the other counselors do it. So this is where I try to put in parallel the method versus the true curious being of each individual practitioner.
Well, but you put it as curiosity, but the way you articulate it was not about curiosity, but more about a certain way of being. Well, let me put it to you another way. Did you ever do martial art?
If Tai Chi counts, yes.
Okay, well, Tai Chi is a martial art, no?
Yeah,
Why would you exclude it?
because it's not a contact martial art. And
Okay, well, there are martial art with contacts and martial art without contact. Okay, so in Tai Chi, you learn a technique, yeah?
yeah,
Now, could you say about someone doing Tai Chi, oh, he's more authentic than the other one by the way he makes the gestures? Can you say that, or it doesn't make any sense?
and no, you can't.
You cannot, right? What is it you can examine in the way people do the Tai Chi movements? What is it you can evaluate?
The harmony of balance and of flow of movement.
Okay, well, can you apply this as well to philosophical practice?
I think so.
Okay, you see, but the idea of is he authentic, not, it doesn't mean much. Although you could claim that when there's a harmony of movement, that somebody internalized more the gestures and therefore it seems more natural. So in a way, it's not, let's call it a primitive authenticity, but an acquired authenticity. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not because we see the personality appearing. Sometimes you look at the way people do consultation and you can see the personality more than other people, but it's not necessarily good. Maybe in a way, like in the Tai Chi, that your personality is visible is not, let's say you're anxious and your gestures show your anxiety. Well, that might not be the the best way to practice the gestures, where on the other side, your subjectivity has to disappear. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or, but I now, after talking to you a little bit, I have the impression that is your issue. You fear or you worry about the personality disappearing. Yeah, is that it?
yeah,
Yeah. Well, why? Why do you want your personality to appear? What's so good about it?
because I want to discover a unique style, like the drunken master.
Yeah, you want to be unique. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That might be precisely go against the idea. You know, I always like this idea of Chuangzi. You say the true essence of a human being is the Tao. Yeah. Anything else is either illusion, yeah, or superficial. Yeah. And it's funny because one thing I've noticed in after many years in philosophical practice, I periodically see people that they want to develop their method, their way of doing, you know, they don't want to do like the other. And generally it poops out. It doesn't work. Yeah, because they don't have, all they know is they want to be special. They don't care so much about doing something. They care about being special, and that generally whatever they try, whether to do it, it's nothing. Yeah, and most of the time people that think mainly about that, they give up. The people I've seen that do philosophical practice in general, they have learned with, you know, with some training, some school, and yeah, it's I cannot see. I've seen people that really want to develop a method. Either they poop out or they come up with something that's formally, yes, okay, nobody else does that, but it's not very significant. Yeah, yeah. So, but that's a more empirical, you know, experience of meeting such things. Yes. So my advice generally is forget about being special, forget about being unique. Just do the job. Try to be efficient, and you know, don't worry about yourself. In fact, I like the idea that the philosopher is a non-subject. Yeah, yeah. But you worry that Alex will vanish, yeah, from the planet, yeah, become invisible, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, think you have a mother. For your mother, you're irreplaceable. Is that
Yeah, I
consoling?
know. What?
Is that consoling that for your mother, nobody can replace? You're unique.
No.
No? Okay, fine. But does it appeal to you metaphysically, existentially, the idea of disappearance of the self, or it bothers you?
No, it appeals to me.
Okay, so then what's your problem?
I don't know.
It appeals to you, but it's still a bit worrisome, yeah?
Yeah, I'm a warrior.
Yeah, yeah. But you actually have two schemes, two fundamental ontological schemes. You see, you either have the Indian tradition, which you find as well in Buddhism, you find in the Greek tradition, where the individual the origin of the individual is some universal absolute. For Socrates, it was a divine fire, and we're sparked from the divine fire. And momentarily, we're separate from the divine fire, the spark, but then you go back to the divine fire. So there's a very momentary, very limited moment where you are separate, where you're separated from the absolute. That's I call it the Indian scheme, because that's the main place we start. And then the Egyptian scheme, which Egyptian scheme is what we find more in the idea in the Christianity, for example, and you find in Christianity, in Judaism, in Islam, the idea there's a soul, there's an individual soul, and this one will never disappear. Yeah, your individuality will remain forever, and if you're good, it will go in a good place. If you're bad, it will go in a bad place. Yeah. So it is always interesting. Sometimes I ask people in consultation, are you more Indian or Egyptian? Are you more for the vanishing soul or for the eternal individual soul? And I ask you, what's your preference?
Well, it is for the eternal soul, but I want the vanishing transcendent soul.
Well, you can always combine, but still, it's always is a sort of different perspective. Yeah, yeah. So you want Alexism to remain eternally. Yeah.
No, I want Alexism to disappear and find something better than Alexism.
Okay, well, then don't worry about your personality. It's an obstacle then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you still have some issue you want to raise about this, or you're good?
I'm good for now. I'm good.
All right. Okay. And then you had a second question. Why don't you read it?
Do emotional people usually experience more pain than pleasure?
Yeah. And do you have any hypothesis to answer that?
I think they experience pleasure in an equal way as they do pain.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. Yeah. It makes no difference.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always a bit weary about it. Makes no difference. Yeah. I like very much the Leibnizian idea. There's no neutrality in being. Yeah. Nothing left you in them. It always makes a difference. Yeah. So let's say, just for the sake of the thought experiment, if you had to decide, even if the difference is not so much, what would you rather choose? that emotional people are more joyful or more sad, more in pleasure, more in pain? What do you
More
think?
in pain.
And why would that be?
Because they are left to run, they are leaving themselves to random chance emotions in the world.
Okay, so the emotions are more random, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, and when reason, for example, would be more determined and controlled, yeah?
Yeah, it would be more constructive
Yeah, yeah.
towards some specific pleasure than leaving yourself and at the mercy of your sensations and random.
And have you ever noticed when people are emotional? Because the problem, emotion is often used in a very undetermined fashion. People say, I'm emotional. So then I ask them, what's the main emotion you have in what you call emotions? Because, love is emotion, joy is emotion, but jealousy as well. And yeah. So I ask them, what is the main emotion? And what do you think is the main emotion of emotional people?
Fear.
Fear. Okay. Generally, I've noticed the main one is anger. Yeah, it's anger. Yeah, and some people they're more on the other facet of anger, which is sadness. Yeah, but anger is a primary one. The fact that it's out of the situation where they don't control in all this and they feel overwhelmed. Generally, their unsatisfaction. But anxiety, yeah, it's the same family. Yeah, there's anxiety, and anger has to do with anxiety because you are not getting what you want, so you're anxious as well. Yeah, but anxiety, it can be more a feeling, yeah, than an emotion. You see why?
No, I don't understand the difference.
Well, an emotion is an intense feeling, intense, which generally has physical manifestation. And a feeling can remain. You can remain with a feeling in a rather constant way, but an emotion cannot sustain itself very long because it's very intense. Yeah. You cannot stay angry for a few hours. It's just not possible. It's gonna transform itself into something else. But because anger demands too much, yeah, your blood goes to your brain and all this. The body, it's a neurophysiological state, yeah, and the physiological part is much stronger in the emotion and in feeling. So, and you cannot maintain such a strong state. You understand the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anxiety is more, you can remain anxious in a rather calm way. It maybe it will not manifest itself on you. Fear, on the other side, that's more emotion. It's because it's much more intense than the anxiety. It's more connected to some specific moment, and you will see it. You will see it. You might not see the anxiety in the face and the body of a person, but the fear, you will notice it. Yeah. Just like anger, you will notice. Makes sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So emotion in this sense is the opposite of equanimity. You know equanimity?
No.
Equanimity is the constancy of mental state, which most wisdoms recommend. Yeah, to be equanimous. Yeah. Neither great excitement nor great upsetness. Yeah. And that's rather contrary to an emotional state, yeah, which is excessive. By definition, an emotion tends to be excessive, maybe for the right reason. If you are scared because there's a lion's going to eat you up, well, it's not that it's irrational, but it's an excessive state, even though it's caused by a situation. Yeah. that okay with you?
Yeah.
Does that deal with your question?
Yes, it helps me complete the puzzle.
Yeah, yeah. But do you see what both your questions have in common?
No.
A certain, okay, well, let's see, because I've been doing a lot of explanation. Who sees a pattern, something common in terms of preoccupation in both questions of Alex? There's a common feature. Who can identify it? No one? Oh, you people are sleeping. Try to see if there's not a concept that's common in both. All right. Well, it's a preoccupation with subjectivity. Yeah. Yes. You preoccupied that the philosopher would hide his subjectivity. You want to defend the idea of emotion, right? So both have to do with subjectivity. Do you notice, Alex?
Yeah, I do.
And you're attached to subjectivity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which country do you live in?
Romania.
Romania. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. I always have obsession with culture because it must be my structuralist side, but always, yeah, well, Slavic culture tends to be quite oriented toward subjectivity. Yeah. Mhm. All right. And yeah, and plus you guys are a mixture of Slavic and Latin culture, and both have this in common, but the Slavic culture more so than the Latin culture. Yeah. At least in the Latin culture, especially on the Catholic side, there's a suspicion to our subjectivity, but not in the Slavic culture. There's no suspicion to our subjectivity. It's primary. Yeah. So it's even glorified. Yeah. You ever noticed that?
Yeah, we even have a saying. We usually say that's subjective whenever we don't agree with something.
Oh, yeah, but that subjective is bad there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, generally, that's the way it works. My subjectivity is good, the others is bad. It's a very common feature of subjectivity. All right. Okay. You're good, Alex, or you want to add something?
I'm good.
All right, fine. Okay, all this issue we just discussed, anybody else wants to add something? No, people are sleepy today. All right, fine. Do you have some other issue that you want to bring up? No? Yes, Yamini, go ahead.
So, what is the difference between interpreting a speech and a philosophical text?
You mean in terms of action to interpretation of speech or philosophical text? Well,
Yes.
I don't think there is any substantial difference, unless you think there is one. But personally, I think there might be difference of detail, but fundamentally, it's the same thing. Do you think of a difference?
I'm not sure. I think philosophical text is more content based.
Well, same with the speech of someone. Of course, a philosophical text has generally often a more intensive, condensed content. But as well, when you do a consultation of someone, you are analyzing the content of the speech as well. You're trying to figure out how they think, what they think, no?
But then this would mean that speech is more dynamic. We can figure out more things about it. It can change, but a text is going to remain as it was.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar and if you have done this kind of exercise, But one way we work on analyzing people is through the evaluation of writings they do. Either they answer certain questions that are asked, and we use this in the business. You know, we have written question. People answer these questions, and then we evaluate the person. Have you done that task yet or not?
No.
No. Leila, will that be a task people will do, or it's not planned?
I think it might be planned, but not for level 1 anyways. So I don't think so.
Okay, not level 1. Okay. So next year, I mean, you will do that. But still, if you want to see what it's like, you can ask Leila to send you an example. But we have a series of 20 questions. You know, like, do you, I don't know, prefer your passion or reason, whatever. And then we from this derive, both from the content and the way people answer, we make a profile of them. So it's an interpretation, and evaluation is an interpretation of a person. Yeah, you know, except in a philosophical text, yes, we're not going to evaluate the competency of Kant. You say, okay, what is his conceptual competency? Well, it's sort of granted. So generally, we're going to more look at the content when you deal with that. Let's call it a normal person. We're going to evaluate the existential personal dimension more. It's less present with Kant, yeah? So yes, a philosophical text is more, it will be looked at more on a content base, yes.
And so it means that we change if the person is dead, then our evaluations also change.
I don't think it's because it's dead. If you would think about, you tell me about your grandfather, I don't know your grandfather, but suppose he's dead, you tell me about him, you know, what he did, what he said, we could do the same thing. It's not because he's dead, it's because a philosopher is very specific. He has produced, he had constructed some kind of thinking, you know, some kind of often a system, or, you know, he has produced ideas. So it's a bit particular, yeah, you know, yes. So his subjectivity will be less visible, we'll more see his ideas, yes. You know, yeah. Although from his ideas, we can presuppose certain existential, functioning. Yeah. Or you read Kant, read Nietzsche, you can tell they're different personality. Yeah. But otherwise, yes, the principle is the same. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Because what difference were you seeing?
Now I think the difference was seeing that I was also expecting content-based presuppositions and not about the form of the writing, but there can be both in both things.
Right. Yes.
It was more my expectation.
Okay. So we're good?
Yes.
All right, fine. Okay, anyone else? No? All right. So if you don't have something else today, I had a bit of a particular plan because we have been discussing the idea of paradigm, and sometimes it's a bit abstract for people. So I wanted to make a little presentation of because I think you might disagree and tell me later, but I think, well, I did not invent it. I'm not the only one to make that claim, that we are undergoing a major shift of our civilization is undergoing a major shift of paradigm, which just not today, but I think it started about 50 years ago, since 50 years, is just increasing. It's becoming more visible, but it started about 50 years ago, like in the basically in the 60s. But I think we're going through an important paradigm shift in our society. And so I wanted to give you some ideas about this. And of course, I feel a bit funny because I'm not a sociologist, but yeah, I'll try anyway to do a little bit of sociology at the same time here. And so if you have objections, don't hesitate to mention them or things not clear. Yeah. But first, before I describe that shift, let me give you a couple of other major shifts to understand what we're talking about. Yeah. And so the idea of a paradigm, like I said, is sort of a matrix. Either you can take it as a matrix or what gives the shape or fundamental ideas that you can take in any society. And that matrix defines the thinking, the existential positioning, some epistemology, some ethics, social structure. It overall defines the way of society function, the way society functions. And I want to give you a couple of historical such paradigm that you might know, so to make things more clear. But for example, if you take the Greek paradigm, antiquity, the Greek, which is the origin of Western culture. The fundamental concept is the cosmos. There's a cosmos. Cosmos, by the way, initially meant harmony. So when they said cosmos, there was a presupposition that this cosmos was harmony, and in fact, this cosmos was created out of a struggle between the archaic forces, which were more primitive, like the Titans, which were more primitive. There was a battle between those and what we know as the god of the Olympus. I don't know how we should call them, the Olympic gods. It sounds a bit strange, but anyway, the ones from the Olympus we know. And the gods from the Olympus, even though they have still some fight between each other, they still represented order. They represented order against the chaotic forces that were ruling before, with Kronos, for example, and with the fights between Uranus and Gaia. I mean, I don't want to start going through the Greek mythology. But basically, it was a battle between the force of cosmic forces of harmony, and they overtook from the chaotic, the forces of chaos, more primitive. So the idea is that the cosmos was primary, order was primary, and a sort of integral order of the world, and that's why you find principles like at the Delphi Temple, which is say nothing in excess. Excess was viewed as something problematic, and in fact, the hubristic creatures like Prometheus were punished precisely because they were excessive. So the idea of cosmos, of harmony, the idea the individual was not viewed as an individual, but as a part. He was a citizen. In Greece, like in Athens in particular, or in Sparta, same thing, and probably a number of others. The human being was viewed as a citizen, as part of a city. He was an integral part of a city. So the paradigm was this idea of integration, of harmony, of balance, and that's why the idea of the logos became so important in terms of reason. Okay. So that's one paradigm that you probably are familiar with. Then later on in Europe was a paradigm, the theological paradigm. Now it's not anymore a cosmos. Now there is transcendence, and the cosmos is more some immanent principle. There is transcendence, but even the gods, they look like they're part of the cosmos. They represent certain specific forces. But with Christianity, we have a transcendent God, which stands out, which is his own cause. Yeah, and he creates the world out of his will, he want to create the world. So there's a hierarchy. There's now a hierarchy between a cause, a God, some transcendence, and below there is the world, people, animals, whatever, nature, which is there. So, and from this is derived different type of principle, much more hierarchical. In a way, the Greek society was less hierarchical, and there was a hierarchy. It was not God-given. And when you think of the gods, the kings, like in France or England, that there was the idea that their power was God-given. It was some fundamental right they had, and that's why they could inherit from father to son. Yeah. So the Christian, and as well because man was at the center. Man was at the center, and the world was created for him. So he has a very special relationship to the world, where, as Descartes said it, he was what's the expression? Master and maître and possessor. Yeah, master and possessor, owner of nature. Yeah. Okay. So that's more although Descartes starts being a new shift. So that's the second paradigm was the Christian paradigm. And a third paradigm before ours was the modern, what's called the modern paradigm. And the modern paradigm is introduced, and okay, I mentioned Descartes, but Descartes as well is one of the founders of the modern paradigm, is the idea that of reason, of the subject, of the human subject, which is agent of reason and which has freedom, which can determine himself through his own reason. And then there is a shift from that standpoint, from a world which is something given a priori, and the human beings are the ones that now take control and determine the world. An important shift in this modern process is the idea of Kant, what's called the Copernican revolution of Kant, when instead of thinking as the world in itself, he said we have no access to it, it's our experience of the world that is determinate. Now we know the world through our experience, yeah? So therefore, the human beings become at the center. While at the same time, interestingly enough, the Earth is not at the center anymore because we went from a geocentric to heliocentric. But that's is a reversal of the idea that the world was created for man. So it's not so much the world is created for man anymore, but we know the world through our personal experience. The world was not created for us. It's not so much you have an external cause to the world. The world is what it is, but what's important is what we can know of the world, the knowledge, the reason, yeah? So rationality, it replaced the faith of the theological paradigm. It's more rationality that becomes predominant, how to rationally organize the world. So that's why you have the birth of democracy, of a state not governed by some God-given rights, but through the idea of reason. The Industrial Revolution as well is a very good example of it, because before the Industrial Revolution, it's in specific individuals that would make products. Industrial Revolution allows to use absolutely anyone and make people part of the process through some rational principle. And for example, you didn't need to educate somebody a long time to be able to use him. And some people claim that allows women, by the way, to to enter the workforce because you could employ absolutely anyone. They didn't need to be educated anymore. Through the division of labor, you could use people with hardly any education, and even children were able to be used in the labor. So all this through the idea of a rational principle. And so the crucial parameter of the modern period is reason, is rationality. Yeah. So this is basically three examples I want to give you of paradigms you can identify too, which I go very briefly, but that's the idea, the Greek one, the theological paradigm and the rational paradigm of what's called modernity. Yeah. Before I move on, because now I would like to describe the shift we're going through since it started 50 years ago of what could be called postmodernist or whatever. Does anybody have a question on the short description I've given or a comment on what I just described? Yes, Matthias?
Yeah, so what's the difference then between paradigm and ideology? Is it the same thing, or is it?
Yeah, yes, ideology, ideology is often used in a negative way. It's like Marx criticizing German ideology, for example. So the ideology is viewed as something stopping, that can be used as something that's against reason. It has a primitive or rigid dimension. Yeah, paradigm doesn't have. In fact, the one that introduced paradigm, I think, is Kuhn. He used it a lot for a certain way of thinking, of a certain epistemology. Yeah, so you can always criticize an epistemology, but it doesn't have a negative connotation. But in a way, yes, you can relate this to a certain ideology, a certain way of thinking. Ideology has this ambivalent type of meaning. Yeah, and as well, ideology can be related to some very reduced idea of how people think, and not include the world vision and this. So, but yeah, so, but fundamentally, it's no real substantial difference. Yeah. After that, it's always the case with thinkers, intellectuals. They somewhat want to insist to make a difference, but for us right now, I don't think it has much issue. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, it is. I was thinking about it in this reduced way, but also that it has negative connotations. It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Yes, May?
I want to know what is a kind of paradigm shift in terms of these three stages around the world, or limited to the Western world, because in different countries, how does this kind of paradigm shift?
Yeah. Well, I know. I thought about it because, among other, because I'm interested in Chinese philosophy, and as well was interested in African philosophy. Well, I'm not a specialist of the history of this philosophy, but let's put it this way: the shifts, probably you can identify certain shifts, but they're not as clear. Yeah. There was such a shift but for example, which was interesting in China in the after the Warring State period, where the idea of gods were replaced by the idea of heavens, by some natural forces. Yeah, so you can identify certain philosophical shift, but I don't know. I'm not so clear if it has such a overall change in the way society functions and all this, but I am not competent. But I would rather say no. There's much more continuity, for example, in the Chinese history. But of course, there are differences, something. But it's not as a clear cut as what you can observe in the Western, and and a bit same thing when you look at the history of Africa. When there were changes, they were more caused by external factor, like invasion of the Arabs, or invasion of the European colonists. So these are it's not exclusive, it's the best examples I have, but you might find someone who says, well, there has been such things in China. I don't know. I would rather say no, not so clear cut, but again, not a specialist of sociology and history. Do you have any reason to think differently, or no? You're just asking.
Yeah, just want to ask, how does this kind of paradigm shift influence the Eastern world, especially China? Because Chinese history, we are seriously impacted by Western, like industrial revolution, and things happen from the West to the East.
Well, yes, well, that's, I think, in China now, right now, at the same time, because of and I'll go through this, there's I don't know how it's called in English, the phenomenon of the whole, what's the word? Matthias, we call in French mondialisation. How is it called in English? It becomes world culture. Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Globalization.
Globalization. Globalization. That would be a good. Yes, globalization. So China is now going through a shift. The big shift there was in China historically was around when the passage from the empire to the republic. Yes. What was the name of the Republican, which was inspired Chiang Kai-shek? What was his name? The
China.
What?
Republic of China.
No, I know Republic of China, but there was a major intellectual that brought it. That was a main actor for this change.
Yeah,
Do you
Chiang
know?
Kai-shek.
No, before.
Sun
Yat-sen. Sun Yat-sen. So Sun Yat-sen, who basically is the one that was the main agent for the transformation of China from an empire to a republic. But there again, he was Western. It was a Western influence. So when the major change that occurred in China, real transformation that are more externally caused, that internally caused, and same thing with Africa. So in terms of and today is probably the biggest shock that ever was in the history of China is like what in the West is what's happening right now. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Anyone else? No? All right, fine. But when you listen to the historian and all that, they can, same with what happened in America with the invasion of the Europeans. Anyway, all right. So now I would like to describe a little bit what is this paradigm shift that we are going through since a little while. And I tried to put it through two major concepts, which I call decentration, losing center, decentration, and deconstruction. Then deconstruction, not only with the Derrida idea, but deconstruction in the more general way. Although the Derrida idea, sort of corresponds to it. The first thing I want to do is oppose the idea of institutionalization or institution to what I call, maybe in a funny way, tribalism. Yeah, the idea of tribe. The major transformation historically in the West, and I think it's the case in most countries, has been to go from clans, tribes, which were ruled more like an enlarged family, often connected to some ethnical identity, and where it was more the power, there was more a bit the rule of the stronger. And we went from this to the idea of creating institution. Now, institutions are structures, yeah, are structures which generally have principles by which they abide, yeah. And this structure and these principles become determinant, yeah. And that's what you have, for example, in the institution of a constitutional state, going from just having some king who is the one imposing power to having some kind of constitution. So if you look at the history of the most countries, I think you can find a certain form of institutionalization where everything takes place through institutions. So if you want to do something, if you want to accomplish something, you have to integrate yourself in an institution. Institution, it can be juridical institution, it can be political institution. If you were in China, you had to pass the imperial examinations, and through different levels of imperial examination, you would reach higher level of power. Yeah. In the West as well, we had corporations that were ruling the different crafts, corporation of jewelers, corporation of whatever, of masons. Yeah. So you have to integrate some institution. If you want to write, you want to be published, you have to go through some publishing house, right? So institution. And it seems now we have a certain collapse. Institutions still exist, but they are being bypassed. They are being bypassed quite a bit. It seems you don't have anymore to go through institutions in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And an example you all know is what's called the influencers. Yeah, some people and that there has been a major what made it possible, of course, is the development of internet. But if these influencers who come out of nowhere, we don't know where they come from. They never. Maybe they have no school diploma, which traditionally would have been the thing to do, no particular competency, and suddenly they get well known. They have lots of clients, a lot of whatever followers. They make a lot of money. They're very famous. I mean, they might disappear next week, but anyway. But for a while, they both don't come out of an institution, and what they do is, I call it a tribe. Call it something else, They build a tribe, but it's not a tribe defined by some ethnic groups, by some a priori place. It's a tribe defined simply by some subjective connection. It can be around liking makeup, around liking football, around whatever, yeah, there's no rule on that, yeah. It's simply people that will identify to someone, and they will follow this person, and this person will become an influencer, have a certain power. Yeah. So I call it, and we have seen actually interesting phenomena like this from a political standpoint, like in French, the yellow jacket phenomenon, who emerge, and that's the difference with the institution. Institution, normally they have leaders, who run them, who change, but still they have leaders. They have defined leaders. They have defined principles, a certain, function, defined philosophy written. It's often written, yeah. But these yellow jacket phenomenon, for example, which really created total havoc in France for some time, came out of nowhere, had no real leaders, no real principles. In fact, they had a few things in common, like about gasoline prices and that. But otherwise, ideologically, they're very different people. You had extreme left, extreme right, people who had not political, right? And that's why when they were interviewing these people, there were a lot of very different kind of speeches, but they had a common action. They had a common action, like blocking roads all over the country. Yes, very powerful. And actually, you have the same thing happening now in Canada. You know, where truckers, just because they don't like the fact that they have to get some pass or vaccine to go through the border between the US and Canada, which is a very, very important border in North America. They block the capital of Canada, Ottawa, yeah. Again, out of nowhere, yeah. So, so you have suddenly movements that appear that are very fluid, yeah, very fluid. They're not rigid, they're not defined, and they can come, have a tremendous impact, and then disappear. And you can think of many other such movements. The Anonymous is another such movements, yeah, that come and go, and that will make, yeah. Another thing I want to give you, a bit different but still the same, is what's happening now with these digital currencies. And traditionally, currencies were defined by central banks. You need a political power to be able to establish a currency. In modern world, more the nation state. Before it could be a local power, but more the nation state. But today now, central banks are being challenged by groups that create currency, and more these let's call them anarchistic. They're not totally anarchistic, but still, from the standpoint of central bank, we can call them anarchistic currency that pop up and destabilize the financial system to such a point now they are thinking how to include them in discussions about a major monetary discussion worldwide. Yeah. So you see this. Another example is from the standpoint of culture. Before, you had to find a publisher, an editor, a major company, if you're a musician, what do you call it, the record companies. But today, some people, you know, I don't know, they make some music, they become popular through the networks with ever having to do, in fact, some prefer to edit themselves and to promote their own product, their own creation. And today, in a way, anybody can be an author. Anybody can be an author. Before too, you can say that before as well, anybody can be an author. But if you were an author in your little village, only people from the village would know you. But today, you can be an author, you put it on internet, and your text is accessible to anybody on the planet. Yeah, after all, you could probably how to get known, but still, it's available to absolutely anyone. And indeed, there are structures that allow you to make it available to absolutely anyone. Yeah. So from that standpoint, you can say there is a decentering. There's a loss of center. Structures, they're centers, right? Yeah. They not only they organize things. They have a certain postulates, but they are centers. Yes, you know. Yeah. One thing before I forgot, I should tell you about a bit the origin of this change of paradigm. Yeah, before I describe it. Should have done this first. They can be different origin. I would like to identify two major identifiable origin of this paradigm shift. The first one was the revolutions of the 60s, primarily student revolutions, revolts, like in May 68, what's called May 68, yeah, student revolts, but as well, it got combined as well with other type of revolts, like what saw, for example, in revolts of countries against which were within the Soviet bloc that started revolting, like Czechoslovakia, you know, an example in the 60s. But the idea that there was a major cultural shifts where there was a rejection of the traditional type of ethics, of moral behavior, of identification to the traditional system. You go to work, you get a job, you have success. And there were other values that were put forward in opposition to that. Now, I don't know how much you know these people. They're not so much more known now, but there was a guy called Jerry Rubin, which was very famous. He had a motto at the time: if it feels good, do it. Yeah, it feels good, do it. And that captures quite well the ideology that was coming out, that was coming out this period. Yeah. Or the hippie movement, you know, which was all peace and love instead of war, instead of getting a job, instead of getting a family, just some, the whole peace and love movement, yeah. So one was this, revolt against the political, which more political cultural, but another one as well, very important culturally, was the emergence of the New Age, transformation, which more started in England, and mainly England and America, where the idea of New Age, we go from the age of the Pisces, what we can call the Christian, to the age of Aquarius, age of Aquarius. So that would be a change, which is more versatile, precisely. Yeah. It's the thing where the water is coming out. Yeah, the Aquarius has the word aqua, water, and it's more fluid. And this age of Aquarius was a certain rejection of reason in favor of spirituality, in favor of mysticism, and a certain rejection again of traditional moral principles, and a certain attraction toward the self, a culture of the self, in opposition to being a member of an institution, to being a member of a society. So a certain individuality. There was individuality before, but this took place through relation to institution. You could accomplish yourself primarily through institution, but the idea now you had a direct access to your free self-development. Yeah. So I don't want to spend too much time going to this. You can check it out if you want more information on this on internet later on. But basically, for me, these are two key moments: this student revolts, political revolts, and with a shift in the moral values and the rejection of moral values toward other type of values, and the cultural, spiritual transformation of the age of the New Age, what's called the New Age, age of Aquarius. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's the origin. So I'm going to go on, but I don't want to go too fast. So I don't know if anyone has already some comment or question about what I said so far. You raise your hand. No? Okay, fine. So I go on with the idea of decentration. Yeah, decentration. One change, one shift, I brought up the fact there was a criticism of the traditional moral values. We went more for a moral values to what can be called ethical values. Now, of course, morality and ethics is a bit different. People will try to use it or distinguish them in different way, or not to distinguish them. But one way I would like to use a distinction, which again is other people have done it, is that morality has more an ontological grounding. Yeah, for example, I don't know, who said that if there was no God, there would be no morality, because the idea of morality is founded on metaphysical, ontological principle. Otherwise, there will be no reason to respect this morality. Yeah. So the idea is morality has a ontological grounding. Ethics is more fluid. It's more circumstantial, like you say, you have business ethics, or you have medical ethics, or a company say we have our own ethics, yeah, or and the idea then ethics is more circumstantial, more connected to a group, or actually what you have in today when you have a forum of any kind, they have their ethical principle, there's what the netiquette, the ethics of a little group, yeah, they have and they have their principles where you're not supposed to transgress, but it's connected to that group and they're functioning. And today, the ethical consideration actually is very important. Yeah, it's funny because there was a strong rejection of morality in the 60s, but this transformed itself into ethics, but an ethics which is much more locally determined and more fluid, because it can shift. It's not grounded on ontological principles, and it's connected to the establishment of a group. Yeah, so there's the move from morality to ethics. Yeah, another one. And by the way, so if you want to interrupt at some point, just raise your hand. But I'll go through different concepts and you can stop me. Yeah. So there is the idea of the importance of individual initiative, which has more capacity to impose itself directly without the mediation of a structure. Yeah, I mean, there are structures, like you can say Facebook is a structure, for example, or the net is a structure, but I would call them very plastic structure. And in fact, that's the problem there is with Facebook. They cannot, all the discussion, because some want Facebook to impose certain things. Yeah. Well, let me give you an example that I think it's funny, is that Facebook is against pornography. They don't even want to show naked bodies, for example, right? So normally Facebook is supposed to prohibit anything pornographic. But I don't know about you, but I receive periodically pornographic propositions through Facebook, yeah? Because they cannot. It's not like before a school or an institution or a government that could prohibit such things. Facebook wants to prohibit it, but at the same time, it's so plastic that it cannot stop what it's supposed to be opposed to. So there's a way of, some even says, well, there's a double language, because it's what all some of the scandals there was with Facebook, for example. But it's a structure, but a very plastic, very how to say, when it's not waterproof. It's not. It allows. There are many loopholes. Yes, many holes. Not even loopholes. Lots of holes. Yeah, which it cannot impose principles that it's formally wants to impose. Yeah. So today there's the idea. There's much more possibility of individual initiative that doesn't need to go through some. I mean, structures still exist and they have their power as well. Yeah. But for example, the media complain about this, that today, before the media the institutional media could control the information. But today, there's a lot of media sources, uncontrolled media sources, which allows now to have alternative news. That's one thing that Trump, or if it's not him, it's people around him, introduce alternative truth or alternative information. Yeah. So because today the spreading of information is much more loose, and that's why as well there's the idea of fake news. I think fake news as well existed before, it always existed. You know, it's called propaganda, for example. But today, again, it's much more possible for anyone to spread whatever they want if they can organize their communication strategy properly. It's less controlled by structure. Yeah. So at the same time, there is globalization. Yeah. Again, this struck me very much the first time I was in Algeria doing a seminar at the Fine Arts University Center in Algiers. And at a certain point, okay, for people that don't know Algeria, the big identity of Algeria is the fight against the French, who were the colonialists, and the fact that the Mujahideen, the people that fought against it, they have a certain status. And to become president, until now, you have to be Mujahideen, otherwise you cannot become president. Yeah. So the identifying to this war against the colonial power is fundamental. But at some point, the discussion came about, and the young student says, for me, this is meaningless, he says. I identify much more to a young artist in New York or in Tokyo than to this Mujahideen business. And the professors that were there, that were, of course, older and identified to this, they stood up as one man and left the room because they could not be there and listen to this thing. Yeah. So because for them, that is their identity as Algerians. But these young artists, they didn't identify as Algerian, they identified as artists. And there was no geographical boundaries. You know, Algeria didn't mean so much for them, but again, they connected to other artists. So this globalization tends to create transversal type of relation. Actually, Deleuze, the French philosopher, he called it rhizomes. Rhizomes in opposition to vertical type of structure. The vertical structure is a tree. A tree, you have an individual tree, which has roots, then goes up, you have a trunk, and then you have branches and leaves and fruits, flowers, whatever, yeah? It's a vertical structure and an individualized structure. The rhizomes is like in grass. In grass, you don't have each blade of grass has its own root, yeah? They share roots. They share roots. And that's why when we speak about grass, you don't say, I bring a blade of grass. You know, you speak about grass as a totality, as indistinct totality. In fact, we use a singular for a number of individual blades, but we don't think of them as individual. They're just part of the grass, yeah? And their roots as well are common. And Deleuze promotes, because he was in favor of that, but as well defining what's happening now, it's more horizontal type of structure rather than vertical type of structure. And by definition, if it's horizontal, there's no center anymore. Yeah, center, the idea of center is much more connected to a vertical type structure, like a tree, for example. Yeah. So you have, and okay, fine. So Leila, we stop now. Leila, is that it?
For 20 minutes.
Okay, I stop now. I'll restart. Think if you have comments. So actually, one example of the interest or the possible of globalization is our own work in philosophical practice. If this would have been done 50 years ago, you know, and each one in this country, with the fact that philosophy departments, institution are not so hot about philosophical practice, the fact it remains an activity that is not so popular, remains for a minority of people, and would have been very difficult, as a proof a bit of this seminar today. is the fact it can connect all over the world. Is what allows that it has a certain success. Non-institutional success would have been much more difficult before. Yeah. And it's the same thing with I know the books I put of philosophy for children. I don't think that 50 years ago a publisher would have accepted to take such a risk of doing something that is philosophy but does not correspond to the institution. Yeah. But the fact there was a first bestseller in philosophy, which the World of Sophie of this Norwegian guy had shown that institutions were not determining the relationship to philosophy, because before that it was only for restricted public. Yeah. Yes. So the idea of globalization and plasticity is a very important, but at the same time there is a reattachment to the local, to the limited place. For example, there is a number of European countries, like in France. I actually have an example of it, of people that go back to the countryside and live in little villages. Yeah, who give up on the big cities which were viewed as the temple of culture. Yeah, and now again it's rendered possible because of internet. Otherwise, it would be quite boring to live in a little village. One can feel very lonely because there's no culturally. Yeah, but there's actually there's now a phenomenon. I don't know in your different countries where stores claim that all their products never come from further than 100 kilometers. Yeah, all the produce they have, meat, vegetables, fruits, it's no more than 100 kilometers. Yes, otherwise it's not eco-friendly, contributes to the carbon imprint, whatever. Yeah, so there's a identification to the local. Yeah, which is we see. So it's both a phenomenon of globalization. Yeah. And the local, but the intermediate structure, like the nation state, for example, tends to vanish, and we see this a lot, where people identify either to a smaller group or to the totality of the planet. Yeah. So what else on decentration as well? Yes, there is a phenomenon of ethnicity, that's important now. The connection to some ethnic groups as well that we see, which is developing away from the nation state to a relationship to some more organic group. Now, the organic group, again, has to be viewed what I call the tribe in opposition to the institution. So it can be an ethnic group, but as well it can be the people that like something, like people that like football or people. So it looks much more natural, less artificial than the institutional worldview. Yeah, and from this standpoint, we see that there's a strong shift to go from coercion to seduction. Let me see if it's an English word, coercion. Is that an English word? Yeah, coercion. To go from coercion to seduction, because subjectivity is important. Yeah. So the idea is that it's not anymore structure, Kafkaesque type structure, which imposes things by force, but the idea of the seduction, what actually Huxley described very well in The Brave New World. Yeah, and that as what was going to happen in the future. So the type of manipulation is not the same. Yeah. Okay, so that's basically what, as well the decentration, I would say there's a fluidity of reality. Yeah, that's why as well you have to view center and structure as having something in common, because when there's a structure, there is a center in a certain way, and it comes together. Structure creates a center, but now there's a plasticity or of a fluidity of reality. Yeah. So that's all I want to say on decentration. Now I want to go on the other aspect, what I call deconstruction. But first, anybody has something to say? No, no. Yes, Sarah?
I don't know if it's a bit far-fetched, but I'm thinking this decentralization and this disconnection from institutions can be one of the explanations of the radicalization of the institutions, like the politics, with all this extreme right wing coming up everywhere.
Yeah. Well, the idea is that well, I think there are two things. One is a reaction to the globalization, and that can happen. Where don't forget, when you have a phenomenon, you always have a counter phenomenon. That's very striking in human history. Yeah. So one can be a reaction to globalization. The other one is that there's much more room for subjectivity. Yeah, much more room for allowing a certain type of subjective thinking, yeah, to be expressed. So now what you see is very opposite form of subjectivity taking place. On one side, you can have a very strong conservative nationalism that we see emerging. In France, now we have presidential election. Now we have even competing extreme right-wing parties. It's very strong. But at the same time, you have radicality on the other side with the intersectionality or the cancel culture, which is exactly the other way. So, where this kind of situation precisely allows subjectivity and including then extreme form of subjectivity. Yeah. Because you have it on both sides, and there's a strong polarization, not political in a certain way, more I see ideological, or it can take political form, but there's a strong ideological polarity, which is very different from the polarities you had between conservative and communists, which were two schemes, two different structure of society. Here it's more subjectivities that oppose each other. But we see very opposite radical schemes. And often which come out, by the way, not of institution. What you see, for example, an example was this clown that created the 5-star movement in Italy, Beppe Grillo, right? And you have this in different countries, or even Trump to a large extent, because he was not belonging to the Republic. Well, he was Republican, but the Republican Party was opposed to him. He was an outsider. He didn't belong to the people that had power in the Republican Party. They didn't support him. Yeah, he was too wild for them. So you see people from the outside who have the power because they capture the subjectivity of a people. And I'll go that in the second part, but it's not reason-based. It's a reaction against reason, but this I'll bring later in the deconstruction.
Yes.
That's why it's excessive. You want to add something?
Yeah, I was thinking how in Spain this radicality emerged when the population, before the civil war, the radicality emerged because of the population taking power, like the people, right? Having a more horizontal structure of organization, and I was making this comparison, maybe as people start to do different, organize themselves in different ways.
One thing about the civil war in Spain was more of political ideologies that were fighting. I would not call them subjectivity, but more, the communists and the right-wing traditionalists. And then you had the anarchists, right? You had ideologies that were, forward. Now it's more based on subjectivities. There's not, I mean, there is some theorization being done, right? But it's not more emerging from subjectivity which are joining together. Yeah, I think that's something rather different.
Yeah, there's this lack of principles.
Yeah, it's much more connected to emotions, to feelings, and less to ideological constructions.
Yes.
There is a theorization, but it's a posteriori. It's not a priori.
Yes.
Yeah. Makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Pierre, go ahead.
Yes, it's a comment about the 60s when the young people reject the traditional view of life and institutions because that creates some anxiety to have something too rigid. And now we have all of the possibilities. We are more like the grass with many, like you said. And in a way, it creates also a bit of anxiety because, for example, we have many media, so many information, and all of these informations, we don't have the possibility to find the truth. And there is an anxiety about the amount of the informations, for example. And yes, for example, with the medical advice of many professors about the coronavirus, nobody know what the truth is. So there is some anxiety about all the informations and many chaotic and contradiction, even in specialists. So yeah, I just have a comment.
Yeah, but at the same time, you see, one point I'm trying to I think to think here, because naturally we will have a certain inclination, for example, the way people react to this paradigm shift. One can, feel like more attached to past principle, and other be very happy of the new stuff, and we have certain inclination, certain choice. But so if you want to say, we can take your idea, yeah, maybe it's more anxiogenic, but at the same time, there's more debate today about some, like the COVID, for example, much more than would have been 50 years ago, where there would have been more an established party line and what is true, yeah, and with whatever limitation or nonsense it could contain, yeah. So it goes both ways. You have multiplicity, you have no center, you have multiplicity. Fine, it allows of freedom, but at the same time, it brings its dose of anxiogenic because you might feel lost, yeah, in all this same with all the information we have. You Google something, you can find something in the opposite, So you can say it's an advantage and inconvenient, yeah. Yes. So that's the excess freedom can be anxiogenic. Yes. In fact, often we don't know what to do with our freedom. It can be scary to have to be free. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Hans.
It's a little comment about the more debate in this economy of attention, where the consumer, the user of social media becomes the product. Most people in the younger generation in the industrialized world get their so-called information from social media. They literally believe what gets the most likes and upvotes. So that should work counter to any kind of individualism.
Yeah, but you see, you can say that before as well. You would have the line that was given by some newspaper, in most European country, you had your favorite paper, for ideological reason. You read that paper, and that paper holds the truth. So, I mean, both ways. You can say both ways. There can be some illusion of truth, yeah, So, yeah.
Well, there is a time difference factor. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of bits of information being added all the time to the internet. It goes much, much faster today. It's much more difficult to get an overview today.
Yeah, but but at least you have more. You know, you can more easily have different information that you could have back then. You know, where you had you were at school. You had, for example, take a student. He has the school library. You know, with books bought by the librarians, and these are the books to be read. Yeah. So today you have much more. Let's call it alternative type literature with the problematic aspect of where does that stop, you know? So yes, but I think for us, from the standpoint of after that, each one of you might have certain ideological preferences and fine, and why not? But from the standpoint of philosophical practice, I think what's interesting for us is how you have this paradigm shift and how a new paradigm responds, like a response to an old paradigm. Take, for example, how Buddhism was a response to Hinduism, to the multiplicity of God, the complication. Take how Christianity tried to respond to Judaism, for example, right? You know, saying, well, we don't want these rituals, love is what's important. Yeah, so each time you can criticize it, you can defend it, but the point is that societies succeed each other, they live and die, you know. You know, one of the first Greek texts we have is, I don't remember his name, I think Anaximander or something. You say things grow, things die, things grow. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So societies follow each other, oppose each other, and that's the way it is. So I think for us, more is to import the general dynamic and to see what it allows, what it prohibits. Yeah. But to have maintained a certain pluralist view, a certain perspectivist view on these matters, independently of our personal preferences. Yeah.
The irony is that the amount of information does not lead to more knowledge necessarily. There was this economist in the 1970s, a Nobel Prize winner, who said that it would be, what would happen is that there would be an inverse relationship. We get more and more information and we know less.
Fine. Okay. So, but I see there you have a certain option. Fine. Again, let's say, yeah, for example, we realize there's a loss of attention. The psychological study showed there's a loss of attention, for example, in the population, at large, students, population, there's a lot of attention because you get up in the morning, you look at your phone and you get zillions of things that are going through. And then you want to read a lot of these things, or they go in front of your eyes. Your thumb goes quicker than your thumb, or your finger goes very quick. So you go through that. Okay, fine. But at the same time, it's true that young people today have much more information that we had when we were at that age. So yes. So I think the idea is to see again what transformation does, what it provides, and what the problem it has. Yeah. But after that, like always, you have the people who are in favor of the modernity, people who are in favor of more traditional. Fine, that's part of the debate. And today it's a strong debate. We see between the radicals of cancel culture and the people that want to, in France, that want to protect the French language, which is under attack. Okay, yeah. That's yeah. But for us, what's important is to understand that the dynamic going on in these paradigm shifts. Yeah. But again, after that, you can like or not like, or regret, or enjoy whatever you want. Yeah. And I see that you tend to be more traditionalist. Yes. Okay. No problem. Okay. So yes. Anything else? Yes, Ruth?
Yes, I have a question. Do you think, according to the Sarah about globalization and the extreme right, do you think the extreme right in France especially Eric Zemmour, is a subjectivity or is a ideology, a paradigm?
Well, yeah. Well, there is there's a large part of sentimental. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying there's no argument there. There are, but it's an interesting that the guy's again is an outsider. He's a writer. Yeah, he's a writer. He's not traditionally in politics. Yeah, and he has been being very involved in debates on TV. This, yeah. So no, the guy is not irrational, but the way it functions is to appeal to the something being lost in the French nation. You know, there's a large part of nostalgia in this. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's subjectivity.
Well, although I think human beings tend always to be subjective. But the idea, see, there's not before when you had these political debates, there was the defense of certain systems. Yeah. Now it's more inclination and it's on a lot of punctual things. Yes. You know. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, May.
I see paradigm is created by a human being. Can we say that?
Well, I don't know who else would make them.
Yeah, that's what. And those kind of three major paradigm from God, from Greek, from Christianity, and from modern paradigm, say New Age.
No, modern is before, huh? Modern is before. Now it's considered either contemporary or new age, right? So the modern is the period now that's we considered finishing. The problem is modern often used as now, but no, modern, now we're in the postmodern era. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking if this kind of paradigm can be created by us to go back to the original, I mean the first one, because it's created by people. So can we say, because we are recovering, for example, Chinese people like to recover the Taoism or Confucianism. So a lot of people create this kind of idea and become popular. Then can we say this Taoism or like Zhuang, this kind of paradigm we can bring back to this society or to the global to believe?
Yeah, there's always a back and forth between indeed going to the new, going back to the roots. Yeah, that's a common phenomenon. Yeah, and there's always a certain appeal to go back to the roots in certain periods. So it's always opposition between some new concept, like today, for example, in the modern period, progress, the idea of progress was viewed as fundamental. Nobody would question progress. Progress was good, progress was inevitable, and progress whatever. Today, it's largely criticized to go back to something before, to some stability, to some grounding, to some origins. For example, the identification to the place, to the local, to the ethnic. So there's a return a certain return to the origins, yeah, and the criticism of progress. But you always have that, the thing between, and even in the age of somebody, you have often when we get old, we want to go back, become nostalgic of a lost paradise, yes, of the good old times, of the eternity, like in the post writing, the eternity of the memory, yeah, when it remembers, yeah.
Yeah. So we are learning as a philosopher thinking. So when we learn from this kind of paradigm, how could we, leverage this kind of paradigm knowledge or learning, become a more philosophical person. I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, it's a
Well, I just think we have, for me, it's, I never thought too much about this. I noticed certain things and I would criticize certain things. I would like certain thing. And I never thought too much about this shift of paradigm. And at a certain point, recently, I said, come on, I should try to think this, put it together and try to think it. Because at the same time, I was very happy of the new paradigm because it allows us to do philosophical practice easier than it would have been before. At the same time, I see a certain rejection of reason, which I will speak right after in terms of the deconstruction. So I try to think how certain things they come together, yes. So these shifts, they necessarily will create certain things we'll like and certain things we will not like, but we have to understand their dynamic, yeah. Otherwise, we'll just be reactive. And that's what's happening now too much in the debates. People, like often in debates, people are just reactive, yeah. So to have a philosophical posture is to maintain a meta posture, to see this from above, yeah. And in spite of our own subjective inclination, to have a more meta view, perspectivist view of these issues, yeah. To see both their problem, their legitimacy, their inevitability. Yeah, I think it's a bit inevitable that, just like in a family, the children will develop themselves often in reaction to the parents, yeah. Same thing, yeah. It's a natural phenomenon because unlike animals, human beings always want to exist, always looking for an identity, always wanting to be free, always wanting to change things. Yeah. Good? All right. Anyone else? No? Okay. Then I'm going to go on the second concept, which I call, the first one was decentration. Second one is deconstruction. Now, like I said, modernity was primarily connotated with the discovery of reason, how the Descartes, Kant, the Enlightenment, reason, industrialization, which is a practical form of rationality, the development of law, of legal systems, is a form of rationality. And now today, rationality is under scrutiny, under criticism, even under criticism, yeah. And there are different angles of criticism of rationality. The first one is, like I said, subjectivity, feelings and emotions. Today, people's feelings and emotions are argument. It was not 50 years ago. You could not say, well, I don't like your idea. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Today, that's a common argument. Don't tell me that. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It hurts my feelings, this kind of thing. Okay. Now, why not? It's an argument like any other, but the idea is not rationality determining the value, but the effect. It's a consequentialist type of functioning. It's the effect it has on me. So I don't care about your truth, about your reason. If it makes me feel bad, well, don't tell me. I don't want to hear about it, or you're wrong. Yeah. So second one is the importance of relation. Yeah. Now again, I use the tribal concept, but today groups are made a lot based on relation, and we need to have good relation. We need to bond. I want to bring here something which is interesting, is the conception of the troll. The troll. I guess most people know that this mythological creature of Scandinavia, the troll, a little monster, is something you find in social networks. What is a troll? is someone that will come in a forum that will basically be at odds with a group, yeah? And the idea, now it might be for a bad reason, he just wants to, I don't know, he wants to harass people, he just wants to show off stuff, but it can be as well because he wants to bring in some critical dimension, you know? Now, of course, you can tell me if there's a group of stamp collectors, why would somebody come and say stamp collection is stupid? Okay, you say, yeah, but in the absolute, why not? I mean, if stamp collectors are a bit more philosophical, they could be interested in somebody coming in there and saying, look, you guys' activity is meaningless, and they would answer. But no, the idea is what's important is we feel good together, you know, and that's why there's a very strong ethical principles so everybody feels together. Yeah, so the relation is primary. It's a culture. In the institution, no, in the institutional concept, the relation are mediated through the institution. We are together because we belong to the same institution, whatever the institution is, be it a school, a political party, some job, whatever. But here, no, it is through immediate relation to others, and we should not say things that can make other people feel bad. So, you know, so we need bonding, we need good relation. The problem of reason or truth is secondary to feeling good together. And in fact, that's one of the algorithm of Facebook, to ensure that you primarily will get things from people that you sort of fit. It has a reinforcement effect when you belong to such a structure. You will get things that more fit you, but not things that do not fit you. So the liking thing will indicate what kind of thing you like. And that's what you will get. Yeah, that's what the algorithm will provide you with. Yeah. So relation is primordial. The idea of intersubjectivity, very important. Another thing opposed to reason is the idea of imagination. Yeah. Now, there's a famous quote from a rationalist philosopher called Malebranche. He called imagination the crazy lady of the house. Yeah. But today, no, imagination is really promoted as being fundamental. And that's what we ask people who go on YouTube to have imagination. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. Some, I don't know, they make farts and their friend put a match and the fart blows up. It's okay. It's very surprising. It's imagination. Now, I'm taking a bit of a ridiculous thing about imagination, but yeah, you know, and what is being promoted a lot, if you want to have success, you know, to be employed, is to have imagination, to be creative. Creativity is a main value, much more. Before, creativity was more made for artists, this kind of thing. No, today, when businesses employ people, they want them to be creative. Yeah, very, very important value. And of course, you can say truly creative means reason, but still, it's not putting reason in the forefront, but this idea of creativity, like creativity, create new worlds, new world, create virtual reality, to invent virtual reality. And actually, virtual reality, as somebody else we had a discussion the other day, say opposing virtual to reality. No, you cannot oppose virtual to reality, because this virtual world will become more and more the reality. And then your avatar in some second life might be more important than your job and your family or whatever. You know, there's a good chance that the importance of the virtual world will become more and more important. So that goes with the freedom, with the creativity, with imagination. You know, you're not stuck with the given of your life. You're a free person. Okay, yeah. So, yeah. So, of course, one can criticize that even though there's a new type of rationale within this new world, because these new worlds, they have certain rules, certain principles, certain way of functioning. There's a reality principle that transcends this, that can be ignored. So it can be considered that it does have an anti-reason dimension. Yeah. Another opposition is the emergence of religious thinking. Yeah, religious thinking. Now, what's very interesting is that religions, as organized bodies, have lost a lot of their weight, a lot of their power, in a bit all over. But religious thinking, on the contrary, has increased a lot. It can be called spirituality, it can be called whatever, but it's not institutional anymore. It's not I belong to this church. It's I make my own cooking. I make my own religious belief. I take a bit of Christianity, a bit of Jesus, a bit of Buddha, a bit of the shaman, a bit of whatever, and I'm going to cook my own religion. So everybody's got his own church, sort of thing, exaggerating a bit, but there is a very much. It strikes me today that most people have some form of religiosity, but they call it something else. And they say, I'm not religious because I don't go to church. I don't care. You know, you can be religious without going to church. But it means that the religion is not defined by institution, by some personal fabrication, some person. Maybe I have a group, but maybe I'm the only one. And often, and you see the number of books about spiritual development, very popular. There's a huge quantity. Yeah. So religious thinking, magic. Magic has taken a really. There's more now belief in magic today than 50 years ago. Would have been viewed as superstitious. Now magic is very popular. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Yeah. Another one is there is certain aesthetization. The idea things have to please, so they have to be aesthetical. And I want to take a very simple example. When I was young, toasters, they were all gray. Yeah, toasters were gray. By definition, they were metallic and gray. Now you have all kind of colors. Yeah, you have green, purple, this, you know. You can get the toaster with the color that you like. Yeah, you know, so there's a strong idea of these of the aesthetics. And you see a lot of these influencers, for example, is a lot connected to aesthetics, be it makeup. I mean, I'm speaking the one for ladies with makeup, with the clothing, with whatever. Yeah. So there's a strong push because things have to be pleasing. So they have to be aesthetic. And if you see a lot of the products that you see, there's much more aesthetic work being done on them than there was in the past. Yeah, the aesthetic is very, very important, and you see that on the web pages, for example. Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Hold on a sec. Where I lost my page, my notes. Yeah. Another thing is the present. The importance of the presence. There's a presenteism that's very strong today. It's very popular. Live the present. Yeah. Forget the past, the future. Don't worry about it. Yeah. And it's, funnily enough, Stoicism or other type of philosophies are popular for that. But the idea that the present is what's important. The carpe diem is very popular. Carpe diem. Yeah? Take the present moment and live it. Yeah. As a way of being, but as well among the popular type of spiritual proposals that we hear. Yeah, you know, it's the idea of present, very important. Yes. And actually, I read an article a couple of days ago that major finance companies in the US, but it's as well other places, have a hard time to recruit employees on a high level. I mean, highly paid people. Either they cannot recruit them or they recruit them, then they quit. They don't want to go on. They don't want to go on sacrificing their life to become rich. What they prefer is to live well. So they don't want to waste their life just earning money. People like Rene is dinosaurs, people from the past, right? They don't want to spend their life just earning money. They want to live. They want to enjoy the present moment. So they don't want to take those jobs. And these companies have a hard time now, which is a very new phenomenon, to recruit. In case some of you want to earn big money and you're good at finances, there's a lot of opportunity now to be a golden boy or golden girl, yeah? And it's a case as well with a lot of skilled jobs where it's hard to find employees, yeah. The game, the idea of playing, things have to be fun. It's very popular in pedagogy now. Things have to be fun, fun, fundamental value of the day. 50 years ago, you had to be serious. Now, things have to be fun and teachers have to be fun. In fact, some teachers complain that they're confused with TV animators, yes, because they have to give fun to the students, yeah. Another one is thinking positively. You have to be positive, the negative, bad, yeah, shadow. You have to view things from a positive standpoint. Very important idea, yes, So anything that's too serious, too negative, not good, yes, okay. And the last thing is but I already said it, but going from the importance of the virtual, and this virtual has a deconstructing effect on the, let's call it physical, well, I don't know how to call it, on immediate reality, let's call it, short of a better word. Okay, so the idea here again is not to make any of these paradigm an absolute, to say it's good or it's evil, yeah, but to understand the process going on, because just the same way that when you go in a country, it's better to understand the people. If you want to do a consultation with someone, you have to understand the culture in which he is, to put it, contextualize it. Well, same thing today. You have to contextualize and understand the paradigms that we are functioning into, to have a better grasp. And as well, because this way we can make people conscious of the fact they are caught themselves in a paradigm and they have to be able to think outside of it. Yeah, it's very important. Yeah, someone who's very much in this subjectivity, to be able to invite him to some critical thinking about his subjectivity. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so I've done my little presentation. Any comments or question about this? Yes, Yamini?
I have a comment that as you mentioned these examples, or like thinking positive, live the present. So this growing anarchy in social media is kind of producing institutionalized ideas without an institution.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Yes. Yeah. It's a more flowing, more ephemeral, and more spontaneous type of institution. It's yes.
But see, I related to the idea of like Krishnamurti says, the Krishnamurti says that to become to observe without being an observer.
Yeah.
But it kind of seems same in the form, but it doesn't seem same to me.
Well, no, because Krishnamurti is in this tradition where you propose always a paradoxical perspective. Yeah. Well, here it's not exactly paradoxical. I mean, you describe it in the paradoxical way, but in the way it's more natural to have a group of people that get together because they like the same thing is more natural than to create an institution. In fact, before institutions, that's what you had. People that were bonded together because they had something in common, a language, similar culture, similar tastes. Yeah. So I would not connect this to the Krishnamurti idea. I think it's two different issues. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. By the way, what I described here for the West, do you see the same phenomenon in India? Or you would, I know there are features of India which are rather different because you have a stronger traditional society. You have parts of society which is still strongly traditional, right?
Yeah, but it's prevalent in younger generation.
Yeah.
All these things are happening.
Okay, exactly. Same thing with China. You see it particularly with a little bit more and more with the young generation. And that's what makes it's troubling for a lot of parents today in China, where they feel that it's very strange what's happening with their children and how their children think. Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah. But it's indeed more the younger generation, yes.
And like this, the religious ideas are also getting like trendy, but they have to be cooler. They have to be more catchy, and but they have to come in a form of a trend or something like that and becomes common
Yeah.
with the people, not
Well,
with elders. Same with the elder generation.
yeah, well, religion always built himself on a trend. When Christianity became popular as well, there was a trend, you know. But there was a difference is that there's a leader, a guru, and then you identify, you obey, you respect, you go by the party line, yeah. But today, people don't want that. They want each one, you can follow, but people will go, they'll go one group, and then they go another group, and then sometimes people, they follow a group, and that's it. That's yeah. But often people want some freedom when they just do their own thing, yeah. They go shopping, yeah, a little bit of everything, and they picnic, yeah. So that's the main difference. In fact, the idea, the concept of guru is used, I don't know in India, but in the West, is used as a very negative way. Yeah, when somebody tells me you're a guru, well, okay, it's bad. It's a criticism. Yeah. So because the idea the person is subjected. He loses his freedom. And today, everyone is free, autonomous. Yeah. Yeah. So that would be a difference. Yeah. So the trend are more fluid, less structured. Yeah. 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 But religion is always based on trend, at least the successful ones, not the others. Yeah.
But I find it problematic here because I think most people haven't read anything. They don't know about the religion, but they want it because they want like a particular, some kind of trendy, catchy line of it, but they actually don't know what there is behind it because there's so much diversity in the religion itself.
Yeah. Yeah, right. But at the same time, I remember when I was young going to church and these people go to church on Sunday. I don't know if they had let's call it a profound understanding of what Christianity stood for. They had a very formal knowledge because they heard the same speeches from the priest. So yes, in a way, you're right. But at the same time, I think we cannot glorify something in the past where people had a deeper understanding. We can criticize, of course, a certain consumerism that is strong today, where you go pick up things, yeah. But as well, you can criticize the past for people following, and that's what Kant criticized. They behave like children; they just follow. They don't think, yeah. They don't have critical thinking, yeah. Or even critical thinking was prohibited. When a philosopher like Descartes wanted to criticize Christianity, he had to go to Holland because in France it was dangerous, yeah, or others got burned like Bruno, yeah. So, yeah, so not thinking has many ways to appear. It's either dogmatism or consumerism. That's the carrot de Saint-Cylla. Dogmatism on the one side, consumerism on the other side, yeah, yeah. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And that's why as well that now you have in India as well this problem with the strong as well dogmatic Indian nationalist and religious thing on one side, and more modern society on the other side. You have this internal cultural battle, no?
Yes, and it is also because of think the political reasons. It is growing here, so they're kind of merging these two things.
Yeah, but political is often people say it's because of. No, I think political can be a reflection of cultural. Just the cultural can be reflection of political. I don't think ever that one is the is the cause of the other. They sort of come together. Yeah.
Yes, but I find that somebody who's ruling and who is propagating some kind of ideas, and then they become like an image of what people should culturally do, and
Yeah.
it affects. It's dependent on each other.
No, I agree. But if it works, is because that fiber is there in the society. Otherwise, people would
Yes,
say, forget it. They would not listen. So, it must
yes,
appeal to something within the culture. Yeah, you know.
yes, yes,
It-
yes.
the idea that the leader would create something totally by itself, no, I mean it must have an echo in the people. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
For example, I was listening to interesting studies now. I think it was about a German period with a Nazi, and trying to explain that it's not simply you have this bad guy Hitler and doing stuff, but he was really echoing a lot of feelings and perceptions within the German society. For example, the impression Germany had been oppressed, by the France, England, and already in the First World War, and this feeling of oppression was strong within the German culture. Yeah. Otherwise, he would not have had the success he had. Yeah. So the politics and culture, I think, always sort of go together. Yeah. They coincide. Yeah.
Yes.
No. Good.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else? Yeah, Dennis.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment that all the things you mentioned that oppose rationality, it seems like there's this idea of freedom is behind all of them, that there's no resistance, like rationality has a form of resistance, and all these things, they are like, they have to come easy and quick. And I think this tendency is in the society as well, that you have these home deliveries, you call up, and I mean, and in Holland now everyone is having their electrical bike. So this idea that we don't want life to resist us somehow in our thinking and in our daily activity is also apparent.
Yes, but at the same time, do you like when you go to the restaurant to wait, or you prefer they give you the food quickly?
I prefer to go pick it up myself and not call. And
Okay. No, but that's not my question. The idea is, yes, the idea that there's something where if something can be efficient, well, you want to benefit from this efficiency. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that in a way, it's a bit normal that society tends towards some kind of efficiency,
yes.
and okay, at the same time, it can induce a certain impatience, a certain infantilization or whatever. Yeah. But the idea is, sometimes I see people who regret the good old time where you had to work hard and walk 5 kilometers to go to school. This was a good old time, or actually, no, let me give you something interesting. About teaching. Now that I read an article about teaching in France post-COVID, we're still COVID, and they say the fact, as you all know, the problems of having schools open and all this, and they basically said there were 3 tiers the way that teachers reacted. First of all, 1/3 it was a catastrophe. They could not have the group class anymore, the traditional way, the presence in this. They didn't know what to do. They got lost. Their teaching was totally catastrophic. One third. One third, they sort of adapted, tried to use, try to manage, the teaching to make it through. Okay. But one third really developed their teaching, developed pedagogical tools because of the situation, started using technical equipment, whatever, to improve. And an example is a thing that was very developed, that was very hard in France, that then developed. It's called the inverted, I don't know, it's called in English, the inverted pedagogy. Well, you're a teacher, you should know. Inverted
flipping the classroom, I think they call it.
Repeat?
Flipping the classroom, I think they call it.
Okay, I don't know if it's that. The idea is that the students, they read and study by themselves, and in the classroom it becomes a workshop. Is that it?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Called it flipping the classroom. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And because of this, then that was the way to use the technology, because otherwise they're not going to listen behind their computer for 1 hour. So the class had become much more dynamic in the form of a workshop, a little bit like what we propose, right? And so, and they said, so there were different reactions to this. The one that didn't use the opportunity because they were stuck in some old scheme, the one in many, but some really develop, and now they are using those development to promote new pedagogical practices in the future. Yeah, so that's an example of how a situation can be viewed as problematic, in a bad sense, or it can be an opportunity. Yeah. And I remember when the COVID started, I was kicked out of the group of philosophy professor because precisely, hey, this sounds interesting, can be an opportunity. And they thought I was cynic, and they kicked me out of the philosophy teachers group for being lacking empathy and being cynical. Yeah. Anyway.
No, but I don't think that the technology in itself is a bad thing. I think it can be used to your advantage. But what we see is that people they want everything easy. This consumerist behavior.
Yeah, but again, why want it hard if you can have it easy? You see, the question is not so much that in itself. It becomes the purpose of your life. But otherwise, you get things easily. Why not? I see, a little village, 50 years ago, when I wanted something, I would have to go to city, drive 100 kilometers. Now I ask internet and I have it. And I think it's a good thing. Now, of course, if my whole identity was just to get products through internet, then that's the problem, you see.
Yeah.
But we got to ensure we don't confuse something in itself and something integrated in a more global process. That you get things fast in itself is not.
I think there's one other aspect in this, that you become you lose contact with other peoples. You maybe see them via the computer, but if you go to the supermarket and you go to a self-scan, or you don't even go to the supermarket anymore, you just get deliveries at home, you isolate yourself.
Okay, but do you see, would you like to be a cashier in a store? Would you like this for the rest of your life? No. I personally, I think these people do this, they're not provided something else. So if you tell me in the absolute there will be no more cashiers in store, I think that's fine. Now, I in a way, I agree with you. Why not talk to someone who is there, the machine? But if stores could function without cashiers, why not?
Well, I think it's a bit impoverishment. I mean, if you just you neglect or ignore all the people around you, is just focus on yourself.
Well, maybe you have other ways to relate to these people than having them standing behind a cash register for hours. Because you see, you don't want to do that job. You say, oh, it's very nice, there's a lady there because I can speak to someone. But you don't think that you wouldn't want to do this job. Yeah?
No, but I mean, I've also did other jobs like that, but it's fine for a short period of life in your life.
Yeah, but some of them have been doing it for not
Yeah,
as a summer job as a student.
but they
I
enjoy
love
it.
it.
And now
What?
they're losing their job to machines that they, yeah.
Yeah, but do you think, and that's an interesting problem. Do you think that all jobs that can be done by a machine and not by a human being, do you think a human being should do it, or do you think it should be replaced by a machine if a machine can do it? What do you think?
I think in many cases a machine should do it.
Okay, fine. But cashiers are not included in your discount.
No.
Okay, fine.
No.
Oh, I suspect you. You like your cashier at your
Yes, yeah.
at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I met a cute one. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. You want to add something, or we're good?
No, this resistance, this was my main point. I'm good,
Okay.
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a comment. I follow one philosopher on the Instagram. She's quite young, and she created her avatar in this metaverse, and also she opened her philosophical counseling in this in this metaverse.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But well, I'm questioning myself what kind of problems people will have if they start more using this avatar and virtual reality to live their lives. Will be this gap between the image and real self is more bigger than now?
Well, I don't know, but at least I can tell you something. Thinking will still be useful and necessary. It doesn't mean it will be facilitated. I don't know, but you know, as avatar or real person, I think thinking will still be needed.
Yeah.
Does that make you feel better?
Yes. At least I will have a job somewhere.
Did you ask the avatar for a consultation?
No, not yet.
You're gonna try it?
Yeah.
Okay, try it and tell us how it feels to have a consultation with some weird creature.
Okay.
Your avatar a real human being or it's a creature?
She's connected to, she's a real being, but she's using her avatar in the metaverse.
Yeah, but her avatar, is it a human being or a weird creature?
Yes, it's human being, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, she still remain a human being.
Yeah, actually, she looks very nice, like Barbie girl, and so that's interesting.
Oh, maybe we would get more for people who want more clients. You can make an avatar really good looking, you know. Yeah. One for men, one for women, and another one for the others. And maybe you get more clients. That's interesting. Yeah. But actually, I hadn't thought about it. It can be interesting to create a site where we do consultation through some avatar. Could be interesting. And actually, maybe people would feel less threatened with an avatar than with an actual physical being. Could be interesting. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Good.
Yes.
All right. So I would like the ones who didn't speak yet, come on, take a risk. Leila, you wanted to tell us something.
Did I?
Yes, did I? Exactly. Did you follow the discussion? You were busy.
No, I followed.
Well, tell us your thoughts or the question you ask yourself with all this.
Well, I actually had some reflection when you were talking about this influencers business. And I'm a lot on social medias and I follow quite a lot of them, like for music and this kind of thing, and in different countries. And I was seeing how much the cultural aspect is very strong there. For example, if you take some French influencers and some, for example, Canadian, like from Quebec, especially, it's very different. For example, the critic is more acceptable in France. People can critique. Trolls, for example, they appear as more funny in France. And in Quebec, for example...
Wait. What happens more fun? What's more funny?
Like trolls? You were talking about trolls.
Trolls, okay.
Yes, they're more accepted in France, or like even influencers themselves, they criticize a lot things, even government, for example. And in Quebec, for example, it's forbidden. They cannot do this. They don't do this. So the relation between the influencers and their public is very different. What they prone, what they say, and how the comments are accepted or not. It's very different. There is something more politically correct in Quebec, for example, and in France, not so much. So I thought it was they're in the same paradigm and they're doing the same thing, but the cultural dimension is really strong.
Right. Yeah, but that's what I mean. You need a tribe, you see. People find a tribe that fits them, yeah. And if you find a music critic that criticizes too much, you're not going to be part of his tribe. And people look, they have to identify, so that's the way it functions. Not, for instance, you don't identify to an institution, you identify to someone with a certain way of being, with a certain way of speaking, with a certain way of acting. Yeah. So that's what I call the tribal identity. Yeah.
Yes. But what is funny is that, for example, in France, even people who criticize, they can be still considered as part of the tribe.
Yeah, but it would be a different tribe. The people from Quebec, if they hear the French person, it's going to irritate them.
Yes, right.
Yeah. And a French person listening to the Quebec people, they might find them boring because,
yes.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. So you'll have two different tribes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
The French music tribe and the Quebec music tribe. Yeah. Okay, fine. Did you want to add something else?
Not yet.
Okay, fine. All right. Okay. Who else didn't throw in? I would like the ones that didn't speak yet. Ruth and Hans, you both spoke. Come on, others. What's your thought? What's your question? What problem do you see? Matthias.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. You said this has been going on since the 60s. So then I was thinking, basically everyone who's alive today will have been part of this. So even the people who were really old today, they were young people in the 60s. But still we have this counter movement of people wanting to go back to the way it was before, this sentimental, nostalgic trend. But people who are involved in this are people who are also children of this new paradigm.
Yeah, well, you already have a reaction to this because apparently some children who now are adults themselves have children who were children of the what's called the baby boomers, right? So the ones that were young in the 60s. Some of them have counter reaction already to the 60s, to the 60 thing where they want authority. They say they suffered from the lack of authority of their parents and they want authority. We see it as well in psychology books. In the 60s, what was popular, Spock in America, Dolto in France, listen to your children, they need freedom, they need to be heard, this kind of thing, yeah? Now, what's funny is that in China and in Russia, these are the popular things. Freedom for the children, yeah? But in Europe, now we have, and same in the US, you have the counter reaction, where they say, no, you need structure, you need authority, otherwise your children will be in a chaotic thing, there will be these structures, they need authority. And it's funny for me because I see that this is new in this kind of thinking is new in China because of it's a post-communist thing in Russia and in China as well, even though there's still a communist party. So it's it's like they're now going through what happened in the 60s, in the 70s in Europe. But now here we have the counter reaction. I don't know if you see it in Sweden, but there's a lot of going back to authority. But yes, so within the general scheme, you have internal movements. Same, you have people who now criticize a lot what's happening to the society and these. They don't view it as a paradigm shift. They view it as a collapse of society. They view it as it's decadent. You say in English, decadent. 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 It's decadent. Yeah, you know, for them, it's a perversion. It's okay. So you have that, but in a certain way, society is definitely going now in a certain direction, and I don't think it's gonna. In spite of the reactions and resistance, I think it's more going that direction. But of course, I don't predict the future, but that's my impression. Yeah. But within all this, you have internal debates of people who are for, who are against, this kind of thing. Yeah. You know, yeah. Yeah. Do you have this in Sweden now where people want to go back to traditional values and are reacting against this?
Yes, we have it.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense. I think it's mainly people born in the 60s and the 70s. They are the most conservative ones.
Yes. So in general, in any society, like individual life, you have action and reaction. Yeah. But still, there's a global trend because a shift in paradigm doesn't take place like very quickly. So it goes through with all kind of internal leaps and all this. Yeah. That's what I say. It's been going on for 50 years, but I think because of development of technology, because of a number of things, I think we're going to see major changes in the coming period. Yeah. Anyone else who didn't speak yet want to tell us something? Andrea, go ahead.
Yeah. By thinking the paradigms you presented at the beginning of the meeting, I had the impression that as a global trend, humanity is going through it's trying to go to follow the direction to the infinite instead of the finitude. Because if you think about the ancient Greek, the harmony, the order, the finitude was central, very important. And then a Christian paradigm is like, okay, you don't die, you can hope you can live forever. And then the modernity, if you have power of the rationality, you can overcome any kind of resistance. And then now with internet and stuff, so as a global, of course, there are counter reaction, like Matthias said, but as a global trend, I would see this tendency to go towards the absolute instead of the finitude.
Yeah. Well, that goes a little bit with what the preoccupation of Dennis, right? That we can get everything is immediate. And let me give a simple example that shows that. It's about the development of memory. Again, when a number of you, maybe when you were in school, you had to learn poems by heart. Yeah, you had to learn things by heart. Today, not so much, because the idea of memory looks almost ridiculous, because you go on Google and whatever information, your poem, you can have it in 3 seconds on Google. Yeah. So the idea of learning things by heart is has lost its interest. Yeah. When it was much more important many years ago. Yeah. I don't know. In France, we had to learn by heart all the French departments from 1 to 100 and know them in alphabetical order with their number. Yeah, nobody would do that today in school, to learn all the French departments. Yeah, because the country is divided in departments. Yeah. So yes, so because you have at your disposal immediately the totality of human knowledge. Yeah. Yeah. So there is an idea of both immediacy, you have it, and you have it all, and right now. And that's what worries Dennis, that there's a certain impatience developing in the mentality, and you can say consumer, because everything at disposal. And I think that's your idea of infinity, no?
Yeah, so we could say that now, today humanity is more greedy than 2000 years ago because of this global trend, or no?
Yes, but you can say as well more creative, or more imaginative. You can have different lives now. You can have multiple lives. Yes. So yes, yes. Yeah. You know, the problem of these things, it can always a little bit defend one thing and the opposite. You know, those matters. Yeah. 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 But yes, we have yeah. Maybe we want more, yes. Okay, yeah.
For example, I
we can, what?
No, go ahead.
No, I say we want more, but as well, we can more. Yeah.
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 The example you just made about the memorize make me remember about the Socrates, what Socrates thought about the writings. He was a bit against the writings because humanity could lose the memory and the thinking capacity, by the way.
Exactly, and would be less alive. Yeah, or Chuang-Tzu criticized the writing of the old people. See, it's remnants. It's even the word he used, like shit from the old people, from the dead people. Yeah, he criticized writings. He wants an actual practice. Yeah, yeah. So it's you find it in different things. The criticism of the fixed data. Yeah, the writing. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have to stop soon. Anybody didn't say his little thing? And yes, Megan, go ahead.
I like the parts that you have discussed about the paradigm shifting, and I was quite surprised you discussed about it and the new age things, because I was reading about the spiritual things about the ascensions, the shifting to the fifth dimension. And I thought for you it would be kind of a superstition, but you have a rising about the new age spiritual things. So for me, it's quite surprising. Yeah, I didn't think about this can be discussed with the philosophical topic.
I surprised you because you thought I was rigid. Is that it?
No, because I think this about the shifting things, maybe it's not rational. Maybe it's too spiritual. It's too superstitions.
Well, first of all, I would distinguish. Okay, it's not so much spiritual, but the idea of magic. Yeah, that today is popular. Magic is popular. Yeah. Okay. But then, of course, in all these paradigm shifts, you have excess. You know, like for example, I think the cancel culture, for example, is typical of the excess of such transformation. And you will have, same with the people that are reacting against it. You always have excessive people who react excessively. Yeah, you know. So yeah. So you have to see how it's done and how much it allows still some critical thinking. Is it appropriate? Is it excessive? Yeah, you know, yeah.
Yes.
But it's yeah. So that's why it's like in a consultation. That's not so much it's if person is religious or not, but how this is articulated. Does it still allow thinking or does it prohibit thinking? That's the idea. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's very interesting to me. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. So you can still do your magical stuff. Don't worry. We won't kick
Yes.
you out.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. But Leila, it's time to stop. No? Yes. Okay. Yes. Fine. Okay. Good. So then see you tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Bye bye.
See you in 1 hour.
Me?
No, not you. The others.
Okay. 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 Fine. Okay. Bye bye.